The scene started in a castle where Emperor Lanfried was sitting on his throne, and the second princess, Karn, stabbed a sword into his neck. Lanfried asked her how she dared to do such a thing, and mentioned that she might be a Hellstante, but that wouldn't help her escape her curse. She replied that she wasn't expecting anything less and didn't mind being cursed if she could kill Lanfried. She reminded him that a boy with white hair had asked her if that was her final plan to get his attention, and what made her think he would mourn her death, stating that something like that would only happen in her dreams, and what made her think that he would forgive the wife that came from the empire that dragged his country into ruins. Karn thought that she had to focus and couldn't let that bastard get to her. Just as Karn said to Lanfried that she already knew if she killed him, she would die as well, and that curse would prevent her from being reincarnated into his next life, and no one would remember that she ever existed. But what about that? And who cares about the damned curse? She had heard enough of his conniving lies to strike the killing blow. She then slashed the sword at Yenf and killed him. On that day, the Hellstante Empire called, and they were paying the price for taking advantage of the blessing their god had bestowed upon them. She then kicked him from the throne, and as she sat down, she thought that he jeered until the end. She reminded herself that she and her siblings were destined to be enemies. She didn't feel like there was much time left and could feel the curse pulsing through her veins, soon reaching her heart. She then heard some sounds of rebellion which were getting louder, but they were abruptly silenced on the final day, and he should arrive any time. She wondered if things would have changed if she had killed Lanfried, and if she had been stronger, would she have had more power to protect. As a man entered, he asked if she was her. She told him that she was the only Hellstante left and that he might want to take his revenge, but she felt sorry for him that she took that away from him. Enraged, the man broke the gate. Karn told him that she didn't have much time, so just listen to her, and she hoped he would find happiness and end the cause of his misery, as she truly wished that he could be happy. She then started losing consciousness, her eyesight getting blurry, and she apologized to the man. She thought that she didn't have the courage to express her love towards him. Just as the man was about to lift her because she was fainting, she felt like she was in the arms of someone in the army, and it felt warm, and the scent was. She thought that she felt something warm brushing against her cheek, but that faded away quickly, and it was finally over. She wondered how things had become like that, and how she only wanted to see that man happy and showing his charming smile. She remembered when they were small, Lanfried asked her if she wanted the other boy. She agreed with a smile. After all that, as she opened her eyes, she found that she was covered by a blanket and lying on a bed. Just then, a lady came to her and said that she was already awake, and then she introduced herself as her nanny. Karn thought of the nanny and remembered that she had run to save her life by leaving Karn. So how is she there now? Karn then looked at her hand and quickly got off the bed. The nanny asked her to wait there, but Karn rushed to look at herself in the mirror and realized that she was in her child form. The nanny commented that it seemed like she had a nightmare. Karn looked around her room, which was entirely white and had familiar furniture, confirming that she had returned to her childhood. Karn remembered that the Hellstante Empire was ruled by a family blessed by the gods, and those who murdered the Hellstante would be forever cursed. This slogan had been passed down since the empire was founded, serving as a warning to those who dreamed of rebelling against the royal family. The blessings of God ensured that the Hellstante family remained in power. Karn was the second princess of that empire. The trademark of the family was spun gold hair, but Karn was born with dark hair at night. When she was born, a man told her father that she had raven hair, which was considered unlucky in that empire. Her father replied that she had the same hair as her mother, so he had the perfect name for her. Her father then named her Karn, after the poisonous flower. Others called her the damned princess. While everyone avoided her and left, there was only one person who approached her. Her nanny, who came, asked why she was there. Karn stopped reminiscing and saw that the nanny was crying as she grabbed her hand, saying that she was so glad Karn finally recognized her. Karn pulled away her hand and mentioned that her throat was hurting. The nanny asked to be let go so she could get something to drink and promised to come back quickly. Karn agreed, and the nanny then ran out of the room. Karn wondered what was happening and was sure that she was cursed after killing Lanfried with her own hand. She checked her legs, which were bony, and noticed she was tiny and frail as well. Feeling pain, she realized it couldn't be a dream. It was the curse. She wondered if this was how the curse worked, but it was worse than she expected. If that was the curse of the Hellstante, she would gladly endure it. The nanny returned with the drink, telling Karn that she didn't need to lie down and that the medicine must be working. She mentioned that she couldn't believe the number of people who had sent her medicine to wish her a speedy recovery. Karn asked if that was true. The nanny replied that she felt energized just by seeing Karn smile, and then she gave the water to her. As Karn took the glass, she noticed that it was cold, and she asked the nanny what day it was. The nanny was surprised and mentioned that it was obvious Karn might not know because she had been in bed for the week, but she didn't have to worry because she hadn't slept through her birthday. They needed her to fully recover, so she could have fun on her birthday. Karn remembered in her past life that she had smiled then, thinking that the nanny was looking out for her. However, the nanny just asked her to drink the water. Karn expressed that it broke her heart to hear her own raspy voice. She thought that the nanny made her want to throw up and probably mixed poison in the water. Did the nanny think she would never find out? Karn felt like the nanny was weakening her body and playing with her life like a puppet. Karn decided not to be fooled by the nanny again. She called the nanny over and mentioned that she thought her throat would hurt even more if she drank the water. So why didn't the nanny drink it instead? The nanny looked at the glass and agreed, taking a sip and commenting that it was refreshing. She then apologized to Karn for drinking the whole glass. Karn replied that it was fine and joked that the nanny seemed thirstier than her. The nanny said that Karn was so kind and then told her to check the time as she was going to prepare Karn's meal, asking her to ring if she needed anything. With that, the nanny left the room. Outside the room, the nanny relaxed, relieved that she hadn't mixed any poison into the water that day. Otherwise, she could have ended up poisoning herself. She felt like she wasn't her usual self that day, and it almost seemed like Karn knew that the nanny was mixing poison into her drinks. 5 days had passed since Karn woke up and found herself as a child. She focused on getting her health back on track. One day, during a meal, she felt tired of being feeble all the time. Karn asked the nanny to try the food. As the nanny took some, she complimented that it was so tasty and she didn't know who made it, but it was delicious. She then asked Karn to have some as well. Karn agreed and took a bite. Karn thought about what she was eating and found the food to be bland. The nanny asked if Karn liked it and promised to prepare something even more scrumptious when Karn fully recovered. Karn was suspicious and stated that the nanny wouldn't be poisoning the food for the time being. She noted that the nanny had poisoned her until she felt sick and then stopped until she recovered, only to start feeding her poison again. This was all for the twisted pleasure of the person who had hired the nanny to poison Karn. Nanny asked Karn if she would like to read a book when she was done with her meal. Karn placed the spoon on the table and said that she wanted to express her gratitude. Nanny asked whom she wanted to express her gratitude to. Karn replied that she would like to express her gratitude towards those who sent her the medicine. Nanny was surprised to hear that. Karn continued, saying that they also sent ingredients for that ridiculous meal. Karn thought that she must have flustered Nanny, as that was all a lie. Nanny hugged Karn and mentioned that she still wasn't fully recovered, expressing worry that Karn would fall ill again if she ventured outside. Karn agreed with her. Nanny said that she would thank them all. Karn stated that she would like to pay a visit to just one person that day. As Nanny excused Karn, Karn moved away and said that she could bathe herself and was sure that Nanny would be busy clearing the table. As Karn entered the bathroom, she undressed and prepared to take a bath. She got into the bathtub and felt the cold water, but she knew she had to endure it. After the bath, Karn dressed up and started walking around the house. All the servants recognized her by her hair and whispered about why she was wearing such an awful dress and how she managed to find her way into the emperor's palace. One of them suggested keeping quiet and avoiding eye contact with her, mentioning the rumors that she was unlucky. As Karn continued walking, the nanny said it wasn't too late to turn back. Karn replied that they were already there, having arrived at the emperor's office. She commented on how pitiless the man was and that it was her first time meeting her father. She hoped he would at least acknowledge her presence. The man instructed them to wait there and then entered the office. The nanny told Karn that they should head back, not wanting to anger the emperor. She urged Karn to leave before he became furious, grabbing Karn's hand as she spoke. Karn replied, telling the nanny not to worry and freeing herself, stating that she knew the nanny would protect her from the emperor's wrath. The nanny replied that she would do her best. Karn thought to herself to stop lying through her teeth. Just then, the man arrived and informed Karn that the emperor was waiting for her. Karn then told the nanny to meet her after a while. The nanny asked if Karn wanted her to come with her inside. Karn replied that she didn't want the nanny to get scolded because of her, so it would be better if she went inside alone. Karn thought that it was at least something, and she entered to see her father, Kirid. Kirid greeted her, mentioning that it had been a while. Karn greeted the son of their empire and said she was at his service. Kirid asked her the reason for coming there. She replied that she came to inform him that someone was putting poison in her food and drink, and she asked if he had ordered that to be done. Kirid asked Tant what if that had been his order. She thanked him for letting her know. She then bowed and said that she was leaving from there. And as she turned to get back, Kirid stopped her and said that she hadn't given him the answer. Then he offered her to have a seat. Karn sat there and thought that she hadn't made any mistake and remained focused. The man got to Kirid, and after that, he offered tea to Karn. Kirid then asked her what if she had been poisoning herself, and would she have let herself be poisoned to death? She thought that he wasn't being subtle about that, and she was sure he found it interesting that the daughter he had tossed aside had come to pay him a visit. It was good, so continuing to show interest in her, she wanted him to look at her and notice that she was alive and kicking. Then Karn said that Kirid was the ruler of that world, and that's why if he wanted her dead, she would do whatever it took to make that happen. The man thought about how could a young girl speak like that without batting an eye. Kirid thought that the poison had made her frail, and her complexion quite pale, and how could she be so sassy when she looked like she could faint at any given minute? And she was quite different. Karn thought that she didn't have to be scared and stay calm. Kirid said that she would do whatever it took to make that happen, and if he ordered her to end her life there, she would do as he told. Karn just gave a smile. Kirid slammed on the table, and with a loud voice he asked what the meaning of that was. Just as he saw blood coming from her mouth, and he questioned if she had bitten her own tongue. The man got to cleaning that. Kirid asked her how she dared to play mind games with him. She apologized to him. Kirid thought that Tant was as cunning as they come, and she walked the line but didn't step over it. He said to let him make himself clear that he didn't order anyone to give poison to her, and then he asked her if she wanted him to punish the person who made the order. She thought that she was waiting for him to say such. She then replied to him by denying it, and said that what she wanted was more grandiose than that. He was surprised to hear that, and she only gave him a smile and started that she wanted to be given a chance. She then got to lying on her bed and thought that she didn't remember what happened next. Nanny came to her asking what she talked about with the emperor and if she got into trouble or got hurt. Karn thought that Nanny wasn't going to fuss over her. She was reminded of the time when Enrode agreed to meet her, so Nanny's face was so different. Nanny just called Karn, but Karn requested her not to wake her up until the next morning. Nanny didn't seem good and agreed as Karn told her. Kirid wondered about the last words which Karn told him there, and by writing something, he thought that she did the name justice. He questioned that did the man say she had no other servants besides her nanny. The man agreed and started to say something, but Kirid stopped him and said that it was enough and she was poisoned, but that wasn't life-threatening. And it was clear who gave the order, so there was no need for an investigation. The man agreed with him, and Kirid thought that he thought she would ask him to spare her life and not ask for a chance to compete for the throne, and giving birth to Karn was the only thing that Wench did correctly. Karn was dreaming that she was in a dark area and was running there, and as she got tired, she stopped, but unloved. came and said that he found her. Karn woke up from the dream and found herself in bed, thinking that she woke up drenched in sweat, all because of the nightmare, and her body was too weak for her own good. She remembered that after she went to meet the Emperor. Nanny continued to press for details throughout the day. Nanny asked her what she talked about with the Emperor. Karn thought that she was too drained to give her a proper answer. She then got out of bed and thought that she did feel better after sleeping and eating properly. As she went, she thought that she was getting adjusted to this young body of hers. She then went to the balcony and felt so cold. She remembered that she came from the past with memories of the future, but she still remained alone. And for these days, she needed to find people who would offer loyalty and trust. And this time, she was sure that her curse wouldn't affect them anymore. Next morning, Nanny rushed to Karn's room and asked her to wake up. As Karn woke up, she commented that it was so early. Nanny started to say something, but the Grand Chamberlain arrived with 2 people and greeted Karn. Karn asked them to come in and then asked why they had come. Those 2 people thought that the other girl, the princess, went to the Emperor's office of her own volition, so there must be more to her than meets the eye. Karn seemed happy that she finally had some guests at her place. The Grand Chamberlain stated that those 2 people would be assisting her from that time. Nanny was shocked and asked for clarification. Karn said that she was fine with Nanny and that Nanny had been taking good care of her, then asked Nanny if she wanted to leave. As Nanny agreed, Karn continued that Nanny had been making all the decisions on behalf of Karn, like what to keep or who to let go, and all the work was being done by Nanny. Nanny was shocked to hear that and asked when she had done something like that. Karn then told the Grand Chamberlain that it was all a misunderstanding and that Karn sometimes got things mixed up. He might have noticed that earlier, but it took a while to rouse her from her sleep. She then noticed that they were all staring at her strangely. The Grand Chamberlain approached Karn and said that those people were much more than just Nanny and would do their utmost to cater to Karn's every need. They would pledge loyalty to Her Highness as they should and nurse her back to health. He then looked at Nanny and the 2 people and stated that the Emperor also wanted him to relay a message, and they would like a moment of privacy, so they should all leave. As they left, Karn asked him if her father had sent his answer to her request. The Grand Chamberlain agreed, and then took out a scroll and gave it to her. She commented that he did give her a chance, but it didn't come for free, and she guessed she would have to work harder to prove herself worthy. The Grand Chamberlain expressed his thought that it would be best if she lay low for the time being. He mentioned that the poison was mere child's play, and from that time, everyone in the palace would be watching her every move. He wouldn't be surprised if there were assassination attempts in the future. Karn asked what that was about. The Grand Chamberlain advised her to be mindful and lay low, biding her time. She replied that it was more than one word. As he apologized to her, she laughed and said that she knew he was looking out for her, and she knew it would be safer for her to lay low, but she didn't think she could do that. The Grand Chamberlain excused himself, but she just opened the scroll and asked why he thought the Emperor sent it to her. They realized that it was written that Karn was also in line for the throne. She then told the Grand Chamberlain that it seemed like her father wanted to stay alive more and fight tooth and nail against those who tried to wrong her. Grand Cham had been serving the Emperor for years and had been a witness to the various evils conducted by the Emperor, so he was sure his advice would have helped save the second princess's life. However, Karn was only 8 years old, who merely smiled at him after being healed by him. That was as if she had the future all mapped out in front of her. How could she have been so sure of herself? Karn said to him that he never knew what more would be thrown at him, so he should have done whatever he could before death came to them. Grand Cham thought of laying low and advised her to stay in Ian's graces for the meanwhile, so was she really going to throw away that opportunity? She replied to him that she didn't believe in laying low. He said that there would be consequences. Karn asked if that was so, and she couldn't have laid any lower than that. She then sat there and added that she had thrown the gauntlet when she asked for a chance to succeed the throne. She thought that Grand Cham had been serving that empire for years. so he hadn't forgotten the moment he realized the princess and her father were cut from the same cloth. Grand Cham thought that she had said the same things as the emperor, and she might be a half-blood princess, but she was of royal blood. Just then, Karn reminded him that her birthday was coming. He agreed and asked if she had something planned for the festivities. She wondered and said that she wanted to have a grand ceremony as there was much for her to celebrate that year. He wondered if she wanted to celebrate becoming an official member of the royal family. He then replied to her that he would relay her message to the emperor. She agreed and said that he could leave from there. As Grand Cham left, the nanny opened the door and inquired about what she had talked to Grand Cham about. Karn thought that she was willing for the nanny to at least bring one glass of water. But she just called the nanny and said that she was the only one whom Karn could trust. The nanny replied that she knew. Karn continued that she was tired of living in the shadow and that there wasn't anything near her. Even her father had included her in the line of succession. By stating that, she showed the scroll and said that her father had agreed for her to fight for the throne. So wasn't that wonderful? Nanny was in shock and then she ran away from there. Karn thought for Nanny to go and give that news to her real owner as well, and that was only the beginning. Some servants and maids came to greet Karn. Karn noted that there were 5 maids and 7 servants, but she wondered where the knight was, and that wasn't what she expected from Grand Cham. They were all polite and seemed trained, but none of them seemed totally loyal to Karn. Karn said that they were all in her palace, so did that mean they were loyal towards her? One man replied to her that they pledged to serve her with their best abilities as much as they could. She said that 2 of them were sent from the Empress's palace, the 3 at the back were from the second princess, and the other 2 were from the third princess's palace. There were 2 new ones, and the remaining 2 were sent from the emperor's palace. While having tea, she said to let her ask if she had their loyalty. She added not to be so nervous as they were all sent there with a purpose, but they were working for her from then on, and it was all up to them to gain her trust. If they made her disturbed, they would be considered her enemies. It seemed they had an understanding, and she wanted the 2 of them to stay while the rest could leave. As they all left and 2 of the new ones stayed behind, Karn said that she wondered who sent those 2 to her palace, and she could tell that they were both new. The boy replied that he applied for the job at the royal palace after hearing that there was a shortage of staff, and he didn't ask to be sent there. Karn then looked at the girl and realized that she wasn't able to speak. The boy thought that the lady would be the perfect scapegoat. Karn said that she guessed the lady wouldn't be able to plead innocence if something happened, and however, she could speak through her actions. The boy wondered about that and said to Karn that she wouldn't be able to know what the lady was capable of and that she was the type of person Karn should be wary of. Just before the boy finished his words, the lady slashed the knife on the back of the boy's neck and killed him. Karn just hugged her and said that she was waiting for her. Karn was always alone because everyone who showed her kindness suffered an untimely death. Once she realized her brother ENF was behind that, she did her best to push everyone away. She kicked them, rejected them, but Leal refused to leave her side. Karn thought that if Leal stayed with her, she might be in danger. Nonetheless, Leal stood by Karn until the very end. One day, Lanfried was holding a sword that was stained with blood, and the blood was also splattered on the floor. Lanfried told Karn that she had finally made that mess, and he found a filthy bug in her palace, so he took care of it for her. He suggested to her to remember his words that she would remain alone forever unless Ianf died. Once Karn got to Leal, Leal showed her hand where she had written that she would kill all of Karn's enemies until she died. Karn thought that Leal hadn't changed a bit and must have been a scary person to have prepared on her behalf. She wondered how her mother had taught Leal to be so unconditionally loyal. Karn said to Leal that she was part of her people, so Karn didn't want Leal to hurt herself anymore. Karn thought that Leal was the person she trusted, and by grabbing her hand, Karn thanked her for coming to her palace. She then asked for help to turn the filthy royal palace upside down. The scene shifted back to the time when Leal killed that boy. Karn remembered that the boy was hiding his daggers, and Karn recalled that he was the assistant sent by ENF. The room reeked with the smell of blood, and Karn was losing her appetite. Just then, Nanny entered the room, and as she was about to say something, she saw the dead body of the boy and wondered what was going on. Karn hugged Nanny and said that she was frightened, and the servant suddenly crumbled to the floor, staining the carpet red. Nanny wondered if it was done suddenly and if there was an assassination attempt, but then she questioned how the princess was still alive, as it didn't make any sense. Karn mentioned that she was very hungry at that time. Then the scene shifted to the dining hall in Karn's quarters. Karn thought that they needed to clean the dining hall so she could have her meal there. She observed Nanny's reaction and was certain that Nanny wondered why she survived while the servant didn't. Karn believed that the new staff would try their best to win her trust and gain control over her as Nanny had done. Therefore, Karn was confident that there wasn't any poison in the food. Karn commented that the food seemed delicious and wondered if there was poison in it. She thought that she could eat to her heart's content. The servants and maids were shocked to hear this. One maid asked to be allowed to check the food for poison. Karn replied that it was fine and she knew they hadn't put poison in her meal. She then started eating, and after some time she assured everyone that there was no reason to worry. After finishing the meal, she mentioned that she was looking forward to the next one, and then left from there. Someone thought that she was so young and frail, still a mere child. Another person commented that Karn hardly touched her food, wondering if it meant she was really being poisoned. Someone else replied that Karn had just witnessed a person being killed, and anyone would lose their appetite too. Karn overheard these words and thought that she needed to find her people who pledged loyalty to her, but there might be a justifiable reason for their loyalty. Then Karn said to Leal that there was something she needed to know. She asked if Leal knew about the blessings Lanfried received from the gods. Those who dared to end his life would be cursed, and that was his blessing. Because of that curse, Karn was back in the past, living her second life. In her past life, Lanfried took away everything Karn loved. Karn took her revenge by beheading Lanfried, but the curse brought Karn back to her last life. She was sure that Leal found it difficult to understand, but Leal had done her best to protect Karn in her past life. However, there was a time when Karn was weak and powerless, and she couldn't prevent Leal's death. Karn wasn't going to let something like that happen again. She was determined to become the emperor, bring the Hell's Dante Empire down in ruins, and protect her people. Leal knelt down and Karn continued, telling Leal to brace herself because serving a cursed princess wouldn't be easy. Leal seemed to agree with that promise. Nanny's name was Evil, who had never been faithful to Karn, and her master had promised Evil a hefty compensation in return for serving Karn. She had 3 missions there: first, to keep an eye on the princess at all times; second, to make sure Karn would be ill; and third, to make routine reports on her condition. Evil believed that Karn would eventually ascend the throne, so her rewards were confirmed, and fortunately, the second princess was a mere child and hardly worthy of her master's efforts. In a twisted way, Evil was having the time of her life. Karn was the half-blood child but royal, and Evil had a royal under her control. That gave happiness to Evil, but from the time when Karn started giving attention to other servants, Evil wondered why Karn had gone to meet the emperor. Evil realized that Karn wasn't like she had been in the past and wondered if Evil had already entered puberty. She had to get Karn back under her control. Evil placed her hand on Karn's and asked her to tell everything that had happened with her the previous day. Evil heard that Karn had asked everyone to leave except for the 2 servants, so why hadn't she called Evil? Putting herself in danger like that, Karn thought Evil was trying hard to come back, but that wasn't the time. Karn asked her if she was concerned, and Evil agreed, saying that she was worried, so just tell her why Karn had told those 2 to stay. Karn asked what she would do without Evil since she always looked out for Karn. Evil had left her in the dining hall on her own so she could gather information about the dead servant, who he was and who sent him to Karn's palace. Was the sender her father or her royal highness? Evil stopped her and said that she should think before speaking. Karn asked Evil if she wanted to know what the servant did in her room before ending his own life while cursing Karn. warning her not to leave his quarters again. He then slit his own throat, prompting Karn to find out who sent him there so she could protect herself. Karn thought Evil would believe her master was sending her a warning. Karn asked Evil if she knew who sent the servant. Evil replied that she wouldn't know, and besides, there was a reason why she tried to keep Karn from visiting the Emperor. Karn would be fine if she stayed in her bedroom, and Evil would do her best to protect Karn. Karn mentioned that her father promised to throw her a lavish birthday party, which confused Evil. Karn explained that the Emperor wanted to formally introduce her to the world, which would go against his wishes if she were to stay in her room. She liked having her head on her shoulders. Even though the warning was scary, Karn was fine. She approached Evil, asking if she knew the reason for their situation and if it was because Evil always told her to protect Karn from problems. She then wondered what she should do and decided to take a bath. As she entered the bathroom to bathe, Leal was also there. Karn asked Leal to follow Evil when possible and fetch the items Karn asked for. She thought that it wasn't the right time. Meanwhile, two men discussed how Karn was truly interested in the line to the throne. Karn reflected that since the day the boy was killed, no one dared to go against her until she was given the right to succeed to the throne. The second man mentioned that the Emperor always had a fickle temperament and had no doubt that Prince Lanfried would ascend the throne. Karn believed that her emergence had thrown the nobles for a loop, with some of them starting to express their doubts. Her name continuously came up among the high society members. One person questioned how Karn could be in the line to the throne when they had never met her. The second person stated that Karn was the half-blood princess and didn't have what it takes. Two boys overheard this conversation, and the elder one wondered why they were constantly gossiping about the royal succession. The second boy, who was his servant, advised him to be mindful of what he was saying as someone might overhear them. The prince pondered what he would do and had no intention of joining in on their foolish gossip. The servants reminded him that his father had told him to play nice with the members of high society. As they walked, the prince expressed his confusion about what his father saw in them. The waiter replied that the emperor had a knack for recognizing people of importance. The prince asked his two servants if they also supported the second princess, who was the spitting image of his royal highness. Shocked, one of the servants told him to stop saying such things and asked where he thought he was going, as he had just introduced himself to the second prince that day. The prince looked at him, and the servant asked what he wanted to do and why he was climbing up the banister, questioning if he was even listening. He warned the prince not to tell him he was trying to skip out again. The prince replied that he was going to the Duke of Svenbach, and the servant could tell the emperor whatever he wanted. The servant tried to deny and stop the prince, but the prince didn't listen and ran away by jumping from the first floor. The waiter thought he should have known better when he agreed to come willingly to the banquet, and wondered what he should tell the marquise. He thought the Prince Nask was a bit of a troublemaker. Nask believed that Prince Lanfried was cold-blooded, and if she ascended the throne, all hell would break loose. So now was the perfect time for the second princess to make her grand debut, as her mere presence had caused a ripple in Ian's otherwise smooth road to succession. The only catch was that no one really knew much about Karn, and what if she was as evil as Lanfried? That would make things different. Nask knew his father wasn't happy about his friendship with the Duke of Svenbach. He wondered what his grace had to say about that, as he was the one with a knack for catching things. Nask didn't know anything about Karn but hoped she would be the king of the royal family. If she did, he would gladly play the role of her supporter. At night, when Karn was lying on her bed, someone entered with a weapon in hand, pointing it at her. She questioned who he was. The man was shocked to see that Karn was smiling. Karn called Leal and instructed her to break the neck of the person and finish it. Leal did so by approaching from behind and making him fall to the floor. Karn got up and asked Leal what they should do with the man. She thought that this had never happened in her past life, and they sent an assassin as soon as the news spread that she was in line to the throne. Then Karn ordered to leave his body in the royal fountain and wanted everyone to know that someone had paid her a visit in the middle of the night. Leal took out a black object from the man's mouth and gave it to Carn. Then Leal removed the man from there. Carn thought that the person who sent the man had given a poison pellet to an assassin who came to murder an 8-year-old princess. They seemed to be more on edge than she had expected, but there was nothing wrong with that. The next day, some guards arrived, and one of them ordered the others to start searching every nook in Carney, including Carney. Leal confronted them, expressing their insolence and questioning how they dared to barge into the second princess's quarters without notice. The guard replied that they were simply following orders from the high authority, and obstructing them meant disobeying the high authority's rules. Carn asked if the high authority had ordered them to search the quarters of a young, bedridden princess. The guard responded that they had found an unknown body in the royal fountain and had been given orders to search the entire palace. Carn asked how that was relevant to her, and the guard said they would find out. The guard wondered what Carn would do since she was a powerless princess. He believed she could feign arrogance, but she wouldn't fool him. And he noticed she was pretending to be calm, as if she were a true royal. Carn asked what the knights were doing while the body was being dumped in the royal fountain. She pointed out that she only had servants in her quarters, and searching her room would only end up embarrassing the high authority. Leal advised her to think before speaking. The knights said they were doing what they were ordered to do, which was to search the entire palace, and they apologized for any inconvenience caused. He thought she was quite clever. Carn replied that she hoped they would give her some privacy so she could get dressed, as she couldn't go out in her nightgown. She then thanked the knight named Savant. He was shocked to hear that she knew his name, thinking he must have misheard, and questioned how she could know the name of a mere knight. Savant confirmed it and left the room. Then the maid helped Carn get ready, and Carn told her not to speak unless Carn told her to, as she didn't want to die there. The maid apologized and promised to be more careful from then on. Carn instructed her not to look out for Carn or try to protect her, as it wasn't worth risking her life over. She told the maid to focus on what her master had instructed her to do, as Carn was advising her for her own good. The maid replied that it wasn't her intention to interfere, and Carn reiterated for the maid to not interfere and to stick to spying so she could survive. The maid expressed concern about Carn and how the knights could have harmed her. Carn explained that she was different because she was royal, like her real master. Then she asked if they were finished, as she needed to get going. As she stepped outside, she remarked that she couldn't remember the last time she went out for a walk. She was certain that everyone was busy preparing a meal for her in the girrer, and the nanny was probably looking for her. As Carn walked, she thanked God that she could pass as a child again and go unnoticed due to her size. Everyone let their guard down because they thought she was too young. Carn approached Leal and mentioned that there was a reason they had come out for a stroll. She asked Leal if she had heard of the ghost of the royal villa, a poor soul alive but trying hard to live, still searching for the daughter and son she lost in the succession battle. Rumors spoke of the former empress going mad, while others claimed she waited forlornly in the villa for her deceased children to return. Carn assured Leal that she could manage on her own from there, and Leal could return to Carn's room while Carn would join her shortly. Leal agreed and left. Carn noticed yellow flowers in the area, reminiscent of the yellow flowers filling her palace, symbolizing longing. The sight of the flowers overwhelmed her. Then, she saw a lady in a white dress there. Carn realized that there hadn't been any servants and wondered if it was because the lady had fallen out of favor with the emperor. The lady looked at Carn and asked if she was Marie, then showed her love for Carn and became so emotional that Marie was still alive and had grown up to be a beautiful child. She then hugged Carn. Carn thought that the lady's embrace was warm but also felt empty. The lady then told her to snap out of it, and that she didn't have time for that. She said that if Aurel really cared about her Princess Marie, she would get her act together. Aurel asked Carn who she was. Carn introduced herself and said that she was in her service. Aurel reminded Carn that she was the second princess, but questioned why she had come to Aurel. Just then, they heard a voice as if someone was coming, and Carn thought about what she should do, as it wouldn't do her any good if they found out she was there. Arel then pointed to the bushes and told them to come and hide there. As Karn hid, some guards approached Arel and asked if she had seen someone there, suspecting that Arel had been talking to someone. They excused themselves and were about to search when Arel grabbed the hand of one guard and asked if he was her son. She became happy to see him, mentioning how long she had been waiting for him and questioning why he hadn't visited his mother for a whole week. She seemed to have grown even taller. The other guard mentioned that Arel had started again and took the first one for the deceased prince. The first guard told her that she was talking to herself again, and Arel kissed him, noting that 5 years had passed since the first prince had passed away. He then advised Arel to go and take some rest, and they left. Karn thought about how insolent it was that the former empress may have lost her mind, but she had once been the empress of Hellsdante and was taking the insult in stride, as if she had no other choice. Karn reflected on how being deemed weak led people to crave power and not want to be looked down upon. As Karn approached Arel suggested they go inside. She then took Karn's hand and led her indoors, offering her a seat and some tea. While having tea, Arel asked Karn the reason for her visit. Karn replied that she had thought hard and knew there must be someone with the same enemy as her, someone who wished for the downfall of the current empress, the second princess, and their supporters, someone hoping to strip them of their power. She wondered who else wanted that, and that's why she came to Arel, seeking her support. Arel thought that Karn was just a child, but she seemed to possess a will of steel and a strong desire for revenge. Karn mentioned that she had sat there and let them take everything away from her once, but she wouldn't allow that to happen again, determined to take the Hellsdante Empire away from them. Arel remarked that Karn would risk losing everything. Karn replied that she had nothing left to lose. Arel found Karn rather strange, having trouble understanding her. Karn stated that she only had one thing left, her heart and soul, as the Empire had taken everything else and she would do whatever it takes to bring it down. Arel thought about Karn's eyes and sensed the truth simmering within, finding her words to be genuine. She then asked Karn to explain more about her plan, and Karn smiled and agreed to do so. Arel commented on how wonderful Karn's eyes were, noting that when she looked into them, her fears seemed to melt away. She found Karn extraordinary and mentioned that all she had left was her body, expressing her desire to help and protect Karn's cause, but with one condition. Karn asked what that condition would be and assured Arel that she would do anything within her power. Arel then asked Karn if she would grant her the honor of beheading Dicella Rachel. Karn hesitated, not expecting Arel to want to get so involved. Karn then reminded Arel of Dice, who was the mother of the second prince and the current empress of Hellsdante. Karn stated that she would make sure that it happened. Arel thanked her and inquired about the plan Karn wanted to discuss with her. Karn replied that not long from now, His Royal Highness would pay her a visit. She then asked if she could treat him as Arel did when she was the Empress of Hellsdante. Arel asked Karn if she wanted Arel to treat him as she did when she was the Empress, and Karn agreed, saying she would play along. Karn then asked if Arel would be all right with this plan. Arel replied that Karn had given her a reason to live again and that she looked forward to it. Then Arel realized something and asked Karn to wait for a moment. Karn was confused, but Arel returned with something and gave it to Karn. Karn opened it and found a dress inside, asking if it belonged to Marie. Arel explained that she had made it herself for Marie's 6th birthday, but never got the chance to give it to her. Arel said it was time for the dress to have a new owner and hoped that Karn would enjoy it. Karn thanked Arel for the gift and, after receiving it, went outside. As she distanced herself from there, she looked at a castle and realized that she was heading back to the birdcage. As Karn arrived at her palace, 2 maids were shocked to see her, with one providing support for Karn to stand up as they didn't recognize her. They found Karn collapsed on the floor, her dress covered in dirt as if she had taken a tumble somewhere. One maid realized that she was the second princess but wondered what Karn was doing there in such a state. The conversation turned to someone they were discussing, but in reality, Karn was in her own consciousness, thinking that they were referring to their real owner. The scene then shifted to an hour later where Karn was sitting in her room. The Grand Chamberlain was also present and commented on how reckless Karn had been, pretending to faint in front of the Empress's palace. He mentioned that the entire palace knew what had happened and that people believed the Empress had tried to harm Karn because she was in the line of succession. Karn asked why the Grand Chamberlain was upset, pointing out that there were facts within those rumors. She noted that he, of all people, should know, just as he knew who had sent the assassin to her bedroom the previous night. He seemed like he had a lot to say, but Karn wondered why they couldn't let bygones be bygones. She continued by saying that she should be the last thing on the Grand Chamberlain's mind, and for the forgotten flower in the palace to bloom again. The Grand Chamberlain asked her to explain what she meant by that. Karn replied that she would no longer show kindness to those in high positions and would bloom even more beautifully than before, advising him to keep his eyes open. The Grand Chamberlain agreed and wondered if she intended to relay her message to the Royal Highness. He then suggested that she should rest, and he left the room. Shortly after, Leal returned through the balcony. Karn welcomed her and asked if she managed to find what she was looking for. As Leal took out a bottle, Karn appreciated her efforts and instructed her to search for another bottle similar to that one and slip it into one of the nanny's pockets when she got the chance. Leal noticed Karn's injured hands and inquired about them. Karn explained that she got them while digging a hole in the ground and assured Leal that there was nothing to worry about. However, Leal seemed saddened by the sight and gently held Karn's hands. Karn thanked her for looking after her. At night, Kireid walked with the Grand Chamberlain, pondering how Aurel might no longer be the Empress but was still his wife and a part of the royal family, questioning why her quarters were in such disarray. When he entered her chambers alone, he found her sitting there. Aurel greeted him, and Kireid wondered if she already knew he was coming, noting how well-groomed and properly dressed she was. Aurel approached him closely and gave a smile. Kireid moved his hand to her cheek and asked if she was still upset with him. She replied that he had promised to elevate her status, so was this his way of making her noble? With those words, she began to cry and asked if he was going to make her wait all alone. Kireid thought that being alone seemed to have improved her demeanor. Although the guards had mentioned that she had lost her mind, she had lost her mind. She appeared more compliant now. Aurel continued crying and expressed that she only had him left, pleading for him not to leave her. She said she didn't want to be Empress again as long as she had him, and she had one wish for him. He asked what her wish was, and she replied that he should just come to visit her regularly as he did that day. He responded that it was the Aurel he knew and loved, his delicate, beautiful flower, destined to sit pretty in his crystal vase and be enjoyed by him alone. After their conversation, Kireid left with the Grand Chamberlain, who asked Kireid about his tardiness. Kireid reassured him not to worry and mentioned that he knew the Grand Chamberlain purposely arrived late so Kireid could get some rest. Kireid then ordered to behead the guard there and send the head to the Empress's palace. He also instructed to send more ladies in waiting to serve Aurel, suspecting that the young girl, Leal, was involved in Aurel's change of attitude. He thought that Leal wanted an opportunity for change. Kireid then told the Grand Chamberlain to organize Karn's birthday party at the West Banquet Hall. The Grand Chamberlain hesitated, pointing out that it was the place reserved for the third princess. Kireid ignored the Grand Chamberlain's hesitation and instructed him not to forget to invite all the members of high society to Karn's birthday party. He emphasized that it was the second princess's first birthday banquet, so it should be an elaborate feast. The scene then shifted to Karn's room, where all the servants were standing in a queue, apologizing to Karn for not being able to protect her. Karn thought that their apologies lacked sincerity and replied that it was fine, knowing they didn't intend for her to get injured. She believed they wouldn't last long in the royal palace and encouraged them to strive to restore their reputations, as that was the only way to ensure their survival. While speaking, Karn's eyes met with those of a lady with blue hair. The lady bowed, thinking it was strange that their eyes met and noting that Karn didn't seem to have a favorable impression of her. Karn then dismissed all the servants. As they were leaving, One of them remarked on how difficult it was to gain Karn's favor and wondered how Leal managed to win her trust. Another servant mentioned that Leal was powerless, which might have been why she gained Karn's trust. The first servant found it strange and thought they should be more suspicious of that. Meanwhile, the lady with blue hair noticed that Karn seemed to be in a bad mood that day, finding it frightening, and yet she refrained from screaming or hitting anyone, finding Karn cute and realizing she was the same age as her sister Jamie. The lady missed her younger siblings and decided to approach Karn again, feeling a bit nervous after comparing Karn to her little brother. Karn then told her that she wanted to read a book. The lady asked if she could go and get a book for Karn, but Karn declined, saying that she had read all the storybooks in the royal palace. She mentioned that the nanny always stopped by a specific bookstore whenever she left the palace and suggested that the lady go there on her own to bring back an interesting book for Karn. She asked the lady if she thought she could do that. The lady agreed and promised to bring something intriguing for Karn. As the lady left the room, she realized that Karn was not as innocent as she had initially thought and hadn't expected Karn to ask her to fetch a new storybook. Just then, the nanny asked where Karn was. Startled, the lady recognized the voice as the nanny's and quickly replied that Karn was in her room. The nanny seemed to be in a hurry, which puzzled the lady. She wondered why the nanny was rushing and what was on her face that gave away her urgency. The nanny reached Karn's room and slapped her, causing her to fall to the floor. She scolded Karn, reminding her that she had said her room was the safest place for her. With a stern tone, the nanny warned Karn not to try to leave the room again because she didn't know what might happen to her next. After Karn kicked the nanny, she ventured outside and returned with an injury, blaming the nanny for not taking care of her. The nanny had warned Karn numerous times that the outside world was dangerous, and that everyone hated her, waiting for the right time to harm her. Despite the warnings, Karn didn't listen and ended up catching a cold. The nanny was the only one Karn could cry to, as no one else in the palace cared for her as the nanny did. Karn asked the nanny to stop poisoning her food. She apologized and promised not to oppose the nanny's orders, stay inside her room, not complain about hunger, not ask for other servants, and not interfere with the nanny's duties. She begged the nanny to stop poisoning her food and drinks because they caused her body to ache and made her cough up blood. She felt drowsy but was afraid she might never wake up again. The nanny shouted at Karn to stop talking about such things, fearing that someone else might hear. However, the gate was slightly open, and the lady with blue hair was listening to everything from outside. The lady thought, did she hear that correctly? And wondered if Nanny had been poisoning Karn all this time. Why had she done that? The lady thought Nanny had really cared about Karn. Nanny asked Karn how she dared to spew such lies. Karn replied, "Just think about where I get poisoned from," pointing out that Nanny had been taking care of her all the time. Nanny risked that Karn had been acting strange ever since the new servant girl had come to their place. She needed to get treated, and they didn't want Karn talking nonsense in front of the Emperor. Nanny did everything in her power to stop Karn's lies, as it was her duty as her nanny. The lady wondered how a nanny could be so cruel. She pondered what she should do and whom she should ask for help, as she didn't know who to call or who would help Karn. She thought of the royal guards, but judging from their behavior, they probably wouldn't be of any help, and Nanny beat Karn as if she had done it before. And that reminded the lady of the irony. She realized her true master and Nanny had something in common, and at that moment she managed to collect herself and become calm once more. The lady thought that a mere servant like her wouldn't do any good, and since she couldn't help, she had no choice but to turn a blind eye. She remembered the time when Karn had told her not to interfere and stick to spying, so the lady could survive. She thought that was what Karn was telling her. How could she ever compare herself to Jamie? She needed to get a storybook for Karn, which was her job, so she got it from there. After all that, Karn was sitting in her room. Nanny came to her and asked if she had enjoyed her meal and hoped Karn had been able to reflect upon her actions from last night. As Karn agreed, Nanny said she had good faith in Carn and trusted that she wouldn't accuse Nanny of such falsehoods again. As she said that, Carn didn't reply, so Nanny asked why she wasn't answering. Carn apologized and admitted that she was wrong and wouldn't lie again. Nanny replied that it was good of her to admit it, and she had to go out for a bit, so Carn should stay out of trouble. Carn agreed, and then Nanny left the palace in the cart. Carn saw that and commented that the troublesome one was leaving. Just then, someone knocked on the door, so Carn replied to come in. As the lady with blue hair, Trua, came inside, Carn told her that she had been waiting for her and asked if she had brought a new storybook. She inquired what was wrong and why Trua hadn't been able to find a new book. Trua knelt down and apologized, saying that there was nothing she could do for Carn. Carn grabbed Trua's cheeks and asked if she was sorry for not regretting her actions, or if she would make the same choice if something similar happened again. She continued, stating that turning a blind eye to violence was also a type of abuse, especially if it happened more than once. But Carn was a princess, so what did Trua think? Did Trua believe that Carn wouldn't seek revenge? Trua teared up and begged for mercy, saying she was trying. However, Carn stopped her and said she knew Trua had a large family to support, including her younger siblings. Carn proposed the idea of turning back time and starting anew. She asked if Trua would serve the third princess or herself. Carn recalled the information that Leal had gathered that Trua was the eldest in a low-class family and had been sold to the royal palace so her father could pay off his debts. Commoners working in the royal palace were considered disposable goods, and Trua was likely sent there because she was easy to dispose of if things went awry. Despite being sold by her father, Trua continued to pay off his debts and sent letters to her family. Carn noted that Trua was soft-hearted and naive, and if she weren't, she wouldn't be looking out for her family. Trua never cared for the cursed princess with hair as dark as night, and that's why she fell so easily into Carn's trap. Trua asked Carn if she would take a commoner like her under her wing. She acknowledged that she wasn't as clever as other servants and was too scared to ask for help when Carn was suffering. Trua wondered if Carn was still willing to take her in despite these shortcomings. Carn thought that Trua felt guilty for not being able to help her, which was enough for Carn. Carn realized that Trua might end up resenting her for taking advantage of her naivety. However, Carn agreed and proposed that they save each other, with Trua looking out for Carn and Carn doing the same for Trua. They would find a way to survive in the royal palace together. As Trua mentioned, Carn was weak and young, which might be why she considered Trua a kindred spirit. Carn might have been a royal, but everyone looked down on her, and Trua was nothing but a servant from a lowly background. They couldn't sink any lower than where they were at that moment, and that was the only way for them to rise up. Carn didn't expect Trua to be so determined. Trua pledged to serve Carn for eternity. Carn thought how much Trua reminded her of Leela. Then Carn warned Trua to be prepared because surviving the cursed princess wouldn't be an easy task. Carn went to Curade, and by slamming the table he shouted at Carn, asking what she had said and how she dared to show such arrogance. Carn was in her room when the Grand Chamberlain informed her that the Emperor had instructed to organize Carn's birthday party at the West Banquet Hall, which was already being prepared. Carn was having tea and remarked that it was more than she had expected. The Grand Chamberlain mentioned that the Emperor hoped she wouldn't feel too burdened by the decision. Carn dismissed him, saying he could take his leave, and the Grand Chamberlain agreed before leaving. Carn thought about the West Banquet Hall and could almost see the wheels turning in her father's head. Everyone knew that the hall was reserved for Rennie. Curade had made his decision crystal clear by choosing the West Banquet Hall for her party, making her wonder if it was a way of testing her, so she had to push herself through the test. Carn instructed Leal to allocate whatever money was left in her budget and donate it to the orphanage. She then told Leal to summon the servant waiting outside. As Leal did so, the man approached Carn and asked what had happened. She asked him if he knew whether Nanny had returned or not. The man reassured Carn that Nanny hadn't returned and asked her to inform him if she needed anything, as he would make the necessary preparations. Karn turned back and mentioned that it was about the preparations for the birthday banquet. She expressed concern that it would take place in the West Banquet Hall and felt it was too grandiose for someone like her. She planned on bringing this up with the Emperor and asked for his thoughts on the matter. The scene shifted to Kiraid's dining hall, where Karn was having a meal as well. She thanked him for allowing her to join at such short notice. Kiraid observed her eating style and remarked that she seemed afraid to eat for fear of being poisoned, but he believed she had more courage in her. As he agreed, Kiraid continued that it was natural since she had yet to receive her blessings. Karn replied that he must believe she hadn't received the blessings, which must be why he decided to hold her party in the West Banquet Hall. Kiraid asked Karn if the hall met her expectations. She answered that the banquet hall belonged to the third princess, who had no right to ascend the throne. She stated that it was not the place for Karn's birthday banquet and wondered what the nobles would think if the banquet were held there. Surely they would look down upon it and diminish the significance of being in line for the throne. She questioned whether the third princess would also be given the right of succession. Kiraid became aggressive and asked how she dared to show such arrogance. Karn clarified that he was misunderstanding her and that she only spoke that way because she knew exactly where she stood. Kiraid then instructed others to leave the room, indicating his displeasure. Karn's servant thought it wouldn't suffice and that she had to convince the Emperor to change the venue. The Grand Chamberlain escorted the man outside. Kiraid looked at Karn and thought that she was deceptively cunning, realizing he had no idea what was going through her mind. Karn suggested to Kiraid that he could stop testing her and that she might be more useful than he thought. Kiraid wondered how she could be so assured, as if she had already seen his plans, and the more he looked at her, the more interested he became. She explained that he seemed gleeful about pitting her against Lanfried, wanting to test her to see if she was on par with him. Kiraid asked her to elaborate in her own words and how far she was willing to go. She replied that she wanted to hold her birthday party at the South Banquet Hall. The scene shifted to the Empress's palace, where Dice asked the maid what she had said. The maid replied that Karn didn't want to hold her birthday party at the West Banquet Hall, but instead wanted it at the South Banquet Hall. Dice, in anger, took off her crown and threw it, hitting the maid. Looking at herself in the mirror, Dice wondered how Karn could have her banquet at the South Banquet Hall when Dice hadn't dethroned Karn so that she, Dice, could have a banquet there before Karn. Another maid came to treat the injury on the head of the first one. Dice started talking about how she should have killed Karn when she had the chance, and that she needed to go out and make preparations. She then left her room and went to Arel. The servants were surprised to see her there, and Arel calmly asked what brought her to Arel. Dice attacked Arel's face, indicating that she should raise her head and not dare to look at her face with a smile, as she could hardly do so before. She attempted to slap Arel again, but Arel held her hand. Dice demanded that Arel release her hand, but Arel reminded her that there was no guarantee she would remain Empress forever, and that Arel was a living example of that fact. Dice trembled and asked if Arel had finished talking, warning Arel not to value her life and reminding her of Dice's graciousness in allowing Arel to stay in the palace. Dice hinted at how easy it would be to get rid of Arel, just as she had done with Arel's son, whom she loved. Kiraid commented on how interesting it was and questioned if Dice's methods of getting rid of Arel were similar to what she had done with the first prince. He reminded everyone that Arel was still recovering from her illness, so she should be treated with care. Dice tried to downplay the situation, claiming there was a misunderstanding. Kiraid approached Arel and noticed the bruises on her face. He immediately ordered a servant to call the royal physician. Dice realized that if Arel's condition remained the same, Arel could become Empress again, leading to Dice's dethronement. She couldn't let that happen and decided to call Lanfried back to the palace to protect her. Meanwhile, in Karn's room, she remarked on how quickly rumors were spreading and mentioned that she could almost hear the Empress's screams echoing in the palace. She wondered when Nanny would return. Leland Trua listened as Karn expressed that she would hate for Nanny to miss out on all the fun. When Nanny arrived and was informed of the situation, she appeared angry. Nanny, in anger, opened the door to Karn's room and called her out for going against Nanny's words and leaving her room again. She noticed a lady cleaning Karn's facial injury and wondered who she was. Karn welcomed Nanny and asked why she took so long. When Nanny attempted to slap Karn, she realized that the lady standing there was the royal physician.